Well, good morning. This is the last in our series of messages on love. We've been using the Bible, of course, and the little booklet called Follow 52 by Joel Holm. Recently, my wife and I, along with a number of other couples, watched Pastor Mark Gungor's DVD series called Laugh Your Way to a Better Marriage. Well, there certainly was a lot of laughter amongst us. And I think the laughter was at things like aspects of marriage that Mark presented to us, and especially when he impersonated various people, like the woman's voice, "Don't you love me?" Our laughing wasn't so much around the comment, "Don't you love me?" but more over the fact that we recognised ourselves in the situations and the scenarios that Mark was presenting, and so we laughed because we knew what he was talking about. It hit home. Don't you love me is a good question for us to think about today, but I'd like to just move it around a little bit and change a little bit and say, do you love him? Do you love him, God? Does God even feature in your life? Perhaps you've only given him a fleeting glance, a cursory thought, but now with all the deaths and the doom and gloom that's on TV and the news, the talk of recessions, job losses, businesses closing, and the long haul to recovery that our government says is going to have to happen, you're asking yourself, is God real? Is God for real? Keep listening and see what you think. The decision to love God is a personal one that only you can make, one that I encourage you to make if you haven't made it, and one that many of us, like myself, have made that decision to follow God, to try and live life His way. So loving God, what does it really look like? What does it require from us? See what you think of this. One day, Matthew, one of the disciples of Jesus, was listening to Jesus as he replied to a question that an expert of the religious law asked him. The question was, what was the greatest commandment? What is the greatest commandment that they should observe, that they should follow? And Jesus said this, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul and mind. Get hold of a Bible, and you'll find those words in Matthew 22:37. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul and mind. Now that seems like a pretty tall order, a strong command. How can anyone command you to love someone? What was Jesus driving at? I'd like to suggest it's this. He was outlaying the characteristics of what loving God looks like, what it involved. So I wonder if you'd consider this. The heart, our heart, that vital organ that if it's not pumping, we can't live. The heart is the spiritual part of us, where emotions and desires dwell, either good or bad. In our natural state, without God, the heart will lead us astray and be corrupted by our wrongdoing. Those sins, that's a little word, but a big impact on life. Sin. However, by faith, our heart can be changed and renewed by God. I don't know whether you remember the stories from Sunday school days or from just hearing it around through your whānau, through your family, about David and Goliath. Well, this King David, he wrote these words in Psalm 51:10, and he says, create in David, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. He had mucked up and he had realised it, and he came back to God and said, create in me a clean heart. To love God with all our heart, we need to know Him, pursue Him, let Him purify us, seek to live a righteous or a right life as it means each day. It'll take obedience to do that. It's going to take our obedience to do that. And if we can't, then we'll have trouble loving God with all our heart. I believe that when we muck up on this journey with God, because We will do. We're not perfect, and we won't be made perfect until Jesus returns. So when we muck up with God, we can seek to be cleansed, like David. Want to gain wisdom, desire to delve deep into living life God's way. We'll want to let God pump through our very being, and as we do so, we will experience the Holy Spirit's power working within us and with us. Guard your heart, God tells us in Proverbs, that Old Testament book called Proverbs, chapter 4, verse 23. Guard your heart, for it is the wellspring of life. When God sees a person giving it all, giving it their all to love Him, He knows their heart is with Him. What about the soul then? Most of us, well, I've thought like this, most of us think the soul is the spiritual side, that immortal part which when we die separates from us. However, when Jesus gave His answer to that religious law expert, and to those listening, and to us today, to love God with all our soul as well as our heart, He came at it from a Hebrew point of view. Now the Hebrew word for soul is nephesh. Sounds a funny word, doesn't it? Nephesh, which translates to mean living soul. Or as we find in Genesis chapter 2 verse 7, living being. Living being. I remember the old song, "It is well with my soul." Do you remember that? Do you know it? So what's Jesus getting at when He commands us to love God with all our soul? He really was telling the guy and those listening and us today to give God everything. In the Hebrew thinking, a person is made up of multiple parts. For instance, the body comprises of flesh, bones and vessels. We've got organs, and these are seen along the lines of our thoughts, emotions, insight, etc. And then we have our breath given to us by God. Didn't God breathe His breath into Adam at the beginning of time? He breathes into us when we are born. This gives us our character, our identity. It's who we are. If we break it all down, the soul, our soul, is our whole being. Everything. It's you. It's me. Each of us. It is our soul. John Piper, founder of Desiring God, wrote this about the soul. Our entire being is to display that we love God. Maybe right now you and I need to look at our entire soul and ask ourselves, am I loving God with all of me? Am I loving God with all I have? Question: in these days of trouble, will you give time to consider where you stand with God? Will it be on your mind? Because that's another part Jesus mentioned, the mind. Jesus included the mind in declaring that command to love the Lord your God with all your heart and soul and mind. What was He looking for? What was He getting at when He gave such a command? Was Jesus breaking down all the parts of our being, or saying something different? The law expert that Jesus was talking to, he was schooled up on the religious laws that God gave and how the experts like him interpreted those laws. Now, I'm no expert, but it seems to me that he was driven, or they were driven, by this knowledge of the law. The intellect and reasoning behind it all was their life, and it was how they loved God. That's what they thought. They loved God because they followed the law. I believe that Jesus was telling him and telling us today, and telling those listening, that the mind, that place of thought and reasoning and knowledge, is just part of our being. Our mind sifts good from bad, truth from lies, and directs the actions we take through all of that. To love God solely with only our intellect is a miss. Have you ever played the board game Battleships, when you fire a shot and the opposite player playing you says, "No, you miss"? It's a miss. If we just have our intellect, if we just love God with our mind, we've missed the boat. We've missed out. Our mind, when we discover the truth about God and our need for God in our life, is just part of all we are. The mind needs to immerse or mix with our heart and soul, just in the way that you bake a cake. And many people have been baking like they've never baked before over these times of lockdown in New Zealand. You know, you combine all the ingredients, you combine them in it's a bit like that. You're combining everything together to make a cake. Loving God can only happen when we combine our heart, soul and mind together. The total package of us. As William Barclay writes, it means that to God we must give a total love. A love which dominates our emotions, a love which directs our thoughts, a love which is the dynamic of our actions. It seems that what Jesus was getting at when he said, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul and mind," for us to love God totally takes total commitment from us, not just sections of our emotions or thoughts or actions. He needs all of us. So have a look at Matthew chapter 22 verse 37. Then look at also 1 Corinthians chapter 13 verse 13 and 1 John chapter 4 verse 7 and 1 John 3 verse 16 to 18, and one last Old Testament book, Psalms chapter 18 verse 1. Take some time to meditate, to pray, to ponder and reflect on what your love looks like with God. If God challenges you about the love you have for Him, what you thought it was and what it actually is, then take time to humbly seek Him. Ask Him to forgive you where you have been wrong, and to renew all that is in you, all there is of you, so that you can love Him with all of you. Those are my thoughts for today. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul and your mind. So today, in finishing, I just want to pray a prayer, and it's actually words written by William Holmes, a Salvationist in America, and he wrote this, and this is our prayer, so pray it with me. All that I am, all I can be, all that I have, all that is in me, accept and use, Lord, as you would choose, Lord, right now, today. Take every passion, every skill, take all my dreams and bend them to your will. My all I give, Lord, for you. I'll live, Lord, come what may. Often I come with my problems and cares, running to you when distressed, but I must bring you the whole of my life, Lord. I must give you my best. Life has no purpose unless it's yours. Life without you has no goal. All that fulfills me is doing your will, knowing that you're in control. All that I am, all I can be, all that I have, all that is me, accept and use me. Accept and use, Lord, as you would choose, Lord. Right now, today, take every passion, every skill, take all my dreams and bend them to your will. My all I give, Lord, for you. I live, Lord, come what may. Amen. Amen. And have a good day.